So, something I like about Souls games is the sense of community and the discourse around the games. Part of the point of the difficulty curve is to connect with people about the games and discuss them and share your thoughts and opinions. And I've watched a lot of these boss ranking videos where I just couldn't disagree more with someone's opinions. And I think it's cool that so many people have such different opinions and experiences with these games. I noticed many of the people making these kinds of videos are Souls veterans, and they're ranking bosses based on what they teach to first time players or how they come across on a first playthrough, even though those people are hundreds of hours away from their first experiences of these games. That is not me. I'm pretty new to these games, so I just wanted to add my own opinions, and I hope someone finds them valuable or just enjoyable to mull over. So, a little bit about me, because I think my background's important to these rankings. I've always been a storyline game kind of guy. My favorites have always been like the first few Assassin's Creeds, Mass Effect, Elder Scrolls, Uncharted. I didn't think I would like the Souls games for years because I wasn't attracted to difficulty in games. Games for me are a way to unwind and relax. I have a family and a career. Gaming is a hobby that frankly was falling by the wayside until I discovered the Souls games. I picked up Elden Ring about a year ago. I fought my way through to Volcano Manor, got pretty stuck on Godskin Noble and then Rykard. But once I beat them both, I got absolutely addicted to that feeling of relief and accomplishment that you get from beating bosses. And that's, I think, something that's important. I like the boss fights in these games. Then I played Sekiro, and later I played Dark Souls 3, Dark Souls 1, and just finished Bloodborne last week. I had varying experiences with all these games, but I definitely consider myself a fan of the genre, and particularly of From Software, and I plan to play each of these games, a few more times. I think that these games are really kind of the only ones I want to play now. I've definitely gotten addicted. Elden Ring is still my favorite. It was my original. I feel like that's most people's experience with Souls games. But I've only played all the other ones just once. I'm working my way through Demon Souls and Dark Souls 2, but based on my first few hours playing them and just kind of community sentiment, I don't expect to enjoy them as much as the others, so I think it's a fine time to make this boss ranking list. And so Sekiro took me 3 weeks to beat. Dark Souls 3, Dark Souls 2, and Bloodborne each took me 2 weeks. I think I understand how these games work pretty well. They were all kind of enjoyable runs. I didn't look anything up unless I was confused about routing on like main game progress. So you'll also see in the boss tier list I missed a few. And I think that's fine, because that kind of is a rating in itself if they're hard to find or not really that necessary. A little bit about my bias on the boss types. My favorites are just duels, so like one-on-one, or like say like with Pontiff, like a really reasonable 2-on-1 against like a humanoid or like a not too large beast type enemy, so like Gale, Godfrey, Godric, most of the fights in Sekiro, Twin Princes I would even count, like Lady Maria, Orphan of Kos, Soul of Cinder, that kind of thing. Those are always my favorites. The other types of fights, and I generally like them less, are duos or ganks, like Ornstein and Smo, Godskin Duo, Demon Princes, Shadows of Yharnam. I don't generally enjoy them as they don't seem like they're balanced for this type of gameplay, and they almost never really seem to work in my opinion. There are mob bosses like Rom, Renala, Deacons of the Deep, Gravelord Nito, where there's just sort of a lot of other enemies in the arena with the boss. I generally despise these. I wish they would get rid of these. I never enjoy them. So you'll see that reflected in my rankings. There are gimmick bosses like Yorm, Rykard, the Divine Dragon in Sekiro, the Ancient Wyvern in DS3. I don't actually mind these fights. If they're really hard, I mind them. If they're not that hard, I don't really care. I think, they're just like a boss in a story game, which is, kind of what my background is, where I came from. So, I don't hate gimmick bosses. There are also like colossal or like beast bosses that kind of F with your camera, like Starscourge Radahn or the Cleric Beast in Bloodborne, maybe even Osiros in DS3. I have varying degrees of opinions on these. I think they're pretty typical for this kind of game. I think they work. And then I think the last category is like NPC fights, like all of the nameless mausoleum bosses in the Elden Ring DLC, Letta, Gideon, Half-Light, and DS3, most of the hunters in Bloodborne. I don't tend to like those. And it's probably just because I suck. Like, it's probably just a difficulty thing. I think they're generally harder. They can roll away from your attacks. They can parry you. Whatever. And then last thing before I get started is a word on my approach It is entirely subjective. I look at ranking these as kind of like the Michelin star ratings for restaurants, where like a 3 Michelin star restaurant is like, it is worth a special journey to go eat there. A 2-star restaurant is like worth a detour on your vacation to go eat somewhere. And a 1-star is like really good in the category. So I took kind of a similar approach to my rankings. I think S tier is like, this boss will make me want to pick up the game and do a run of it. So sort of like a 3 Michelin star, like I will take the trip to that game to fight that boss. A tier is like, if I'm on a run, I will seek out that boss, or if it's a required boss, I will look forward to it. B tier is I might seek it out if I'm having a good time or not in a rush, and if it's required, I'll probably enjoy it. C tier is I will probably not seek it out. I might avoid it, and if it's required, I will probably not enjoy it. And D tier is I will probably avoid. I will most likely avoid fighting this boss, and if it's required, I'll just get it over with. If I'll cheese or whatever, use like my most overpowered weapon or whatever. F tier is I will definitely avoid it, or if it's required, I will dread the encounter. So that's pretty much, I think, all the background I could possibly fit in here before I get started. I'm also going to do them in the order I played the games for the most part. So I'm going to start with Elden Ring, then go DS3, DS1, Bloodborne, and Sekiro's last. I'll say a word about Sekiro when I get there. So, okay, in Elden Ring, obviously there are a ton of bosses. I'm not going to rank every single health bar in the game. I'm not going to include repeat bosses unless they're like materially different, like the Tree Sentinel and the Draconic Tree Sentinel. I'm not going to rank bosses that are otherwise regular enemies later, like the Hero of Zamor or Pumpkinhead, unless there's something unique about the health bar boss that sets it apart, like the Clean Rot Duo is a duo, or the Grafted Scion, the very first one, has like an introductory kind of responsibility for the game, so I'll rank that. So without further ado, Elden Ring first. I think the Grafted Scion is a C tier boss. I actually don't think it's a terrible boss, but I pretty much never fight it anymore. I think the fight's okay, it's just not really that rewarding. The Tree Sentinel is an A tier, man. It is absolutely iconic. I think it's actually a pretty fair fight. It teaches you to come back later, I think the Tree Sentinel is awesome. I think everybody knows the Tree Sentinel who has ever tried Elden Ring. It probably made so many people quit, and I will always fight it now right out of the gate. I think it's a great fight. On the other hand, Knights Cavalry, who everybody also probably knows, I think they suck. I think they run away from you too much, and rely too much on like horseback, like riding by you and just hitting you and then being 20 feet away from you. I just don't enjoy fighting them, and I pretty much never fight them unless there's like an Ash of War or an item that I want to get from one of them. Crucible Knights, I think they are very fun fights. They're like now that I've played some of the Dark Souls game, they're like the Black Knights in Dark Souls 1. I think they're fun. I don't often fight them, but I might, if I'm having if I have a build that I think would be good against them, or I'm having a good time with it, I will. The Erdtree avatars, I think these guys are awesome. I think they're really easy. They're basically the Asylum Demon from DS1, just like in in better graphics. I think they're fun. I almost always fight them, and plus they have really good rewards, so it's worth fighting them and worth getting good at them. They have all the good physic tiers. Tibia Mariners, I think they're lame. I never fight them. Margit, the real intro boss, I think he is at the tippy top of the A tier. I think he's awesome. The only reason he's not in S tier is because Morgott exists, and it's just an improvement on Margit. But Margit's a really fun fight. Once you get used to it, he is like what got me used to Elden Ring, gets you into Elden Ring, gets you out of Elden Ring. I actually played the game and quit like a year before I ended up picking it back up at Margit. So that was kind of a classic first Souls experience. Margit was the guy for me, and I'm sure so many other people. But now I know his moveset and can no-hit him pretty much whenever I want. I think he's really fun. Godric, straight up S tier. I love Godric. I think he has a really good soundtrack. He's a fun part of the storyline, that he's just this kind of pathetic, creepy guy. Great fight, easily kind of telegraphed moves. He gets you into the jump mechanic. Really fun. And then in the second phase, he obviously is amazing, grabs the dragon arm and leaves himself open if you just run up to him, and you can do whatever you want. You can test out builds. And that's just like a really fun feature. I love Godric. I think he's great. Adon, the jail guy, I think he's a pretty low C tier. He's okay. I pretty much never fight him unless I want his big fireball. The Demi-Human Queens, I think they're pretty bad. They have low health. They have weird, not their hitboxes, but you trying to hit them is annoying because they have big spaces between their legs. They're kind of like a Bloodborne boss. I just don't really enjoy fighting them. I always fight, is it Gillica, the one that has the ritual sword talisman, and it's just boring. I try to get it over with. Death Threat Birds similarly are C tiers for actually kind of a similar reason. They're hard to hit, frankly. I might be fighting them wrong. Maybe I'm supposed to, target the head more, but I just don't enjoy fighting them. They do a ton of damage and don't tend to have great rewards unless you're like an intelligence build. I mean, in which case, I guess the Death Ritual Spear is really good and the Death Poker is really good, so I'll put them above Adon because I think they have a better reward. Are they better than the Grafted Scion? These two, I kind of think of them similarly. Yeah, they are. I think that's appropriate. Okay, the Red Wolf of Radagon. I don't really enjoy. I think he's too fast. And he runs away and casts the magic glint blades that it's kind of spam spell casting, and then otherwise can just kind of combo lock you. I don't think he's a great fight. I always try to get him over with quickly if I'm doing Rennala in that run. Speaking of, Rennala is probably the best mob type boss. I just hate mob bosses. I think they suck. Her phase 1 is annoying but not difficult, so I don't really penalize her for it. But her phase 2 is just not that fun, and she spams summons. It's also not that hard, so if I need to fight Rennala because I want to respec or I'm doing Ronnie's questline for some reason, I will just try to get it over with. I'll do whatever strength, just bonk her, and she's very easy. Not a very fun fight. Not a very good concept either. The Leonie Misbegottens are cool. They're a good fight. I think they're going to be at the tippy top of the C tier. Just because I don't really fight them often because they don't hold anything that good. All the legendary weapons they have are not very good, particularly at the point in the game you get them. Well, I guess the Grafted Blade Greatsword is really good, but I never really need to use it anymore. It's better for, if you're doing certain runs where you're keeping your stats low, your levels low, which I don't really do. But they have a good moveset. I've heard them compared to Gale, which I think makes a lot of sense, who is a great fight, but Gale has a lot more going for him, which will get him rated a lot higher. The Clean Rot Knight duo is not bad. I actually think they're a pretty good boss. I like the way the duo fight works. And they're not that difficult, but they have a really good reward, the Scarab, so you can get more runes from bosses. I think they're pretty good. I actually usually fight them. Commander O'Neill, on the other hand, not very good. I don't think he's as bad as Rennala, but he's pretty bad. I dread having to do it if I need to get the Millicent's prosthesis, because he summons 6 guys or something. It's just too many, and they can all shoot arrows at you. I think it's a crappy fight. And Niall, I think, does not have that problem, whereas Niall, I'll rank him now. I think Niall does not have that problem at all because he only summons 2 guys, and they're not that hard. Where is he? Right here. And I think Niall has a much better moveset. He's a lot more fun to fight. I'm going to put him high B tier. Okay, X-Likes is a crappy dragon. I don't like him. His rot attack is very stupid. You have to run away. It's just not fun to fight him. On the other hand, the Magma Worms, and this is a stand-in for kind of all of them, like Makar and the one in Volcano Manor and Theodorix, I think they're fun. I think they're not that bad. I think they're enjoyable. You can get a stun pretty easily. I enjoy them more than Crucible Knights. I think they're a fun fight. And they have pretty cool lore, which I'm not going to get into because I'm not a lore expert. Garrus, not fun. I never fight him. I don't even know why I should have just not included him. He's not really worth being in here. Starscourge Radon, totally iconic, very fun once you get used to the fight. I don't really like the approach that much, but I take advantage of that glitch where if you run backwards, he despawns and respawns back in and you don't end up having to do the run up, and I prefer that approach. I think he's a lot better that way. And with that, he is an S tier. If you have to do the approach, honestly, he's A tier. But I'm going to rank this subjectively, my experience. I love Radon. He's so sick. He's always my second great rune. I do Godric and Radon. I almost never do Rennala unless I have to. And so he's S tier. Probably going to be low S tier because he's pretty close to A tier. in my opinion. Mimic Tier, interesting concept. Not a very good fight. I just cheese him every time, so I just get it over with. But because it's a good concept, it's going to be high D tier for me. Regal Ancestor Spirit. I don't fight him much, so he should be low based on my rankings, but I'm going to go like mid C tier because it is fun. It's like an interesting fight. It's just really easy. He always has low health at the point where you encounter him, so he's pretty easy. So I'm going to give him like mid C. He's probably going to end up lower later on. The Valiant Gargoyle, the Gargoyle duo, I hate. I think they suck. I think there's no redeeming qualities about them. I don't like the Gargoyles as solo bosses, and as a duo, they're even worse. The Dragonkin Soldier of Noxtella is really cool. I like the fight. I don't often need to do it unless for some reason I want that lightning spell if I'm doing a faith build. But then I never use it again. Once I get Ancient Dragon's Lightning Strike, and now there's Knight's Lightning Spear in the DLC. So I probably don't need to fight him much anymore. Like I can just do Lightning Spear, or not even, or just do Pest Threads, and catch Flame, which is all you really need on a faith build. So he's going to be probably low C later. Estelle, and this is the Remembrance Estelle, not the Dungeon Estelle later in the game. I like Estelle a lot. I think it's cool. Like he's kind of he or she, whatever, it is the capstone of a really long quest line. It's a weird, unique boss. It's a little annoying that it can teleport away from you, and the meteorite of Estelle that it casts is a little annoying too, but not like hard to dodge. You just run around, and then if it teleports, you just run toward it. I think it's a cool boss. I'm going to give it a B. I might fight it, any given run. Electo, I don't really care. It's just not that interesting of a fight. There's plenty of other black... I guess this should stand in for all the black knives in general. I just don't think they're that cool. They're pretty punishing. Electo in particular is hard to get to, so like not really worth it when there's 7 other black knives. And I don't remember what Electo drops, but you get the black knife from the black knife assassin in Altus anyway, so that's the only one I would ever really fight if I wanted the black knife. So probably low C. Not as bad as Kilika. Better than... No, I think worse than the Regal Ancestor Spirit. They're just kind of a boring fight. And then like the one in Lane Dell before Morgott, I always just cheese. I either avoid it or I just sneak up on it and smash it, because at that point you're pretty powerful. Elmer of the Briar, I think this is my top mini boss of the game. I always fight Elmer. He is pretty easy. He's a lot more fun if you're keeping your stats low or if you fight him really early. But he has such a sick moveset. I think his lore, he's one of the few who I did item description lore on him, and I think he and his kind are very cool, very interesting, and it's really cool that he has kind of single-handedly invaded this awesome castle, the Shaded Castle. I like Elmer. Fun fight, really good reward, obviously, if you're running a Strength Arcane build. And the Shaded Castle is involved in Millicent's questline, which I almost always do because I almost always want the Millicent's prosthesis. So yeah, I fight him a lot. The Ulcerated Tree Spirits, I like them. I like them a lot. I like them less than Crucible Knights, though. They're annoying, and there's too many of them now in the DLC. It was annoying that they got copy-pasted into Shadowkeep after you drain it. But that doesn't mean they're a bad boss. I still like fighting them. I think they're not that hard, and I think they're cool. Kind of similar to... I like the Erdtree avatars and the Putrid avatars and all that more, probably because they're easier. They're erratic, but... they're fine. They're a B. I might fight them. The Gutskin Apostle is cool. One of the higher B tier fights, I think. I actually like the Noble more. I mentioned at the top that Noble and Rykard got me kind of into the game, so I just have a special place in my heart for Noble. Apostle is probably a more interesting fight, but I like Noble more. Noble's more annoying, that's for sure. But I just like him more. The Abductor Virgins, I do not like duos, and this is no exception. They're not that hard. They actually aren't that unbalanced, because one of them just throws its blade at you from afar, and the other one will come up on you and try to capture you. But it's still just not very fun. I almost never fight it. If I go the abduction route to get to Volcano Manor, I will just go fight the Noble instead. Or I will just go to the Grace and warp out after that. Full-grown Falling Star Beast, I don't like it. I don't hate it. It's not like, I don't think it's like a bad boss. I just don't like it. The charge is like really funny now. It's very frustrating the first time. Specifically the one that's over on Mount Gelmir. I just don't think it's a particularly fun fight. It has a lot of very erratic moves that don't feel that worth it to learn. Rykard, like I said, special place in my heart. It's a gimmick boss. I don't think gimmick bosses are bad. I just don't think Rykard is that good. I think he has too much health, frankly. Especially phase 2. Like phase 2 for me, because I'm not an expert, is like whether I survive it or not is really just luck, based on where his the little flame skulls go. So I like him. I don't love him. I like him a lot, though. He's probably my favorite gimmick fight, him or Yorm, which I'll talk about later. Lanciax, I do not like the Ancient Dragons. I think they are too hard, frankly. Like, I don't have an ego trip about this. I think they're too hard, so I almost never fight them. I think they are worse than... I would rather fight a Knight's Cavalry, but not the Abducted Virgins. The Alabaster Lords, I think, are pretty cool. I think they're a decent fight. They're like a low C tier for me. I will fight them if I have to. Like in one of the... I think it's the Yellow Anix ruins. I don't remember which one. In Snowfield. There's one of them in there, and they're not hard, but, they're not super easy. There's one in the Lake of Rot. I think they're fine. I don't, seek them out, but that's why they're in C tier. All right, the Crucible Knight duo, I have to give them a poor... They suck. Much like the Valiant Gargoyle duo, it was an unthought through duo fight. Just let's put two of them, and it sucks. By contrast, I think the Crucible Knight Misbegotten Warrior fight makes a little bit more sense. It doesn't make any sense why they're together. I don't know what they have to do with each other, but the fact that the Misbegotten Warrior is there alone for a minute before the Crucible Knight shows up at least makes, it shows there was a little bit of thoughtfulness. I like them more than Knight's Cavalry, more than the Falling Star Beast. I would rather do this fight than the Falling Star Beast, probably just because it's easier. Solaria, I think, is probably the coolest Crucible Knight. I'm going to put it in low B tier. Mostly because there's a really good reason to fight Solaria, because Solaria's tree is amazing. Okay, Godefroy. As much as I love Godric, I have to rank this low to send a message to FromSoft, because there's no good reason why it's duplicated. It's such a slap in the face to how good Godric is to just have another one in a jail for probably some discernible reason, but none that I care about. Draconic Tree Sentinel, I think, is one of the coolest moments in the game. You get slapped by the Tree Sentinel, and then all of a sudden you're required to fight one that's even stronger and has lightning and fire, and it just kind of shows how far you've come. And I still like the Tree Sentinel fight. I think it's a good fight, and the Draconic Tree Sentinel is cooler. So I'm going to put it right above Tree Sentinel in A. Esger sucks. There's dogs in his arena. So it's kind of like a mob fight, similar to Renala, but it's actually hard because the dogs can get you. So if I ever need the Lord of Blood's Exaltation, I just come late and just blast him when I'm way over leveled. I think he sucks. The Golden Godfrey, the Shade of Godfrey, is not that good. It's weird because I really like Godfrey, but for some reason the Golden Shade is just not that fun of a fight. I guess he just has too low of HP. I like him more than Electo. I like him more than Regal Ancestor. He's going to be high C tier. I just don't know why there's two. I like this fight, though, because I like that phase. I like the first phase of Horaloo, so. Morgott, absolute S tier. One of my favorite fights in the game. One of the most worth it to, go in with a tank build and just do no damage and learn and memorize the moveset, because he is the most rewarding fight to learn and, dance around with him. He's so cool. I love Morgott. He's the king. He's an omen. Such a great tension there. Great story moment. You've made it all the way through Leyndell, arguably the best legacy dungeon in the game. You're not sure who the king is, and then it's fucking Margit again. I love this fight. I think the fight itself is really fun. I think the storyline is fun. I think the moment in the game is really good. The one thing that I think is going to stop him from being my favorite Elden Ring boss is that his balancing is off. At the point in the game where you fight him, I have always either been way underleveled or way overleveled, more often overleveled, and not because I grind or anything, just because I think he just needs more HP. If he had twice the HP, like honestly, I like him a lot more in NG plus 7 than I did on base new game. Because in NG plus 7, he's actually, but then see the problem there is he can two-shot you at 60 vigor. So he just needs more HP. And he would be probably my favorite boss of all time, honestly. I like him that much. I like his moveset. He's sick. Morgott rules. Just give him more HP, please. The Fell Twins, I think, are really cool. I don't really fight them much. I might, though. I really like their arena, sort of like the Four Kings, where it's just kind of all surrounded by blackness. And I think they are not that hard, but I think they're cool. I don't like them as much as Magma Worms. I don't like them as much as Crucible Knights. I think that's where they belong. Kind of mid-B tier. VS Champs, I hate NPC fights, and this is one of the worst. Lich Dragon Fortisax is another kind of ancient dragon type. I, for some reason, like him more than a lot of the other ones. But not by a lot. I don't really fight him often. I would prefer to fight Regal Ancestor Spirit, even though it's easier. Borealis, similar type, don't like him. I don't know what it is. I just don't enjoy that fight. Maybe he has too much HP or something. I don't know. I haven't thought that critically about it. I just don't enjoy it. Okay, the Spirit Caller Snail, where you fight both the Godskins and then stomp on the snail, I really like. I wish that it was what the Godskin Duo fight was instead of Godskin Duo, because I think it's a really good fight. And it makes a lot of sense that it's I don't know. Vike, probably the only NPC in the game that I enjoy fighting. I don't often, though, but I might if I want to. I don't really ever need... I don't even remember what he drops it, so I don't... that goes to show that I don't fight him much, and he's not that important. What he drops isn't that good, but he has pretty cool lore, I guess, and it's a fun enough fight. I'd rather fight a Crucible Knight than Vike. I'd rather fight the Fell Twins than Vike. I'd rather fight a Tree Spirit. I'd rather fight Celeria. Okay, so he's going to be a low B, I think. The Misbegotten Crusader. This is kind of a stand-in for all of them. Wait, didn't I already do this? I think I already did this one. Anyway, I'd put it in B if I didn't already do this. I'll put it in low B because that's where it belongs. Fire Giant is so annoying. It could be cool, but I always just kind of cheese him. I just use Shard Spiral or Pest Threads or whatever my biggest damaging spell is, just to kind of basically cheese him. Because he's not fun. He's not a good fight. I don't think I need to explain it. I think everybody who is watching this will agree with me. He's not that low. He's not as bad. Oh man, some of these are too high. This is a D. This is a D. Yeah, I think Fire Giant is mid to low C. Okay, Godskin Duo, nope. One of the worst. The fact that they're required pisses me off. They're so bad. They make no sense together as a duo. I sleep them and cheese them every single time because they're just not fun to fight. They make no sense together. You can get them kind of stuck behind a pillar to separate them, maybe to get 1 or 2 hits in, but they're both so fast that you might not even do that. So if you fight them straight up, it's an insanely long fight and not worth it. And if you sleep them, it's just not fun. I think they are probably the worst boss I've fought. I don't know if that's true. We'll see how it shapes up in the next few games. Plassey, one of my favorite dragons. I think Plassey's really cool. I think he's an A tier. It's hard to compare Placidusix to Tree Sentinel because obviously Placidusix is a remembrance boss and there's so much more going on. But he's not that fun. The Tree Sentinel moves around. It's more like a dual type. Dragon Lord Placidusax is more like a big beast fight. And so for that reason, that's just my kind of bias. I don't really like just the big guys that you hack away at. He's going to be below the Tree Sentinel. Ooh, that feels weird. That feels weird to have him below Elimer and the Tree Sentinels just because of how big of a deal he is. But that's how I feel. I think I enjoy the fight marginally less than fighting Tree Sentinel, and Elimer is below the Tree Sentinels. I have this wrong. That's better. Okay, who's next? Malekith is an S tier. I really like the fight. I really like the look. I enjoy everything about this fight. Obviously, it was one of the hardest on the first playthrough, but because of that, I have probably the most practice on it of most of these fights. I really like the Phase 1. I can fight Phase 1 all day long. Phase 2 is really hard. I do frankly have to usually rely on projectiles or a stance break build to get through phase 2 like relatively quickly, because if it drags on too long, I just don't know the moves well enough. But it's so cool. Like, I don't mind getting killed by Malacath. He is so cool. His sword is really sick. Yeah. He's better than... Like, who am I kidding? As cool as Godric is, Malacath is so cool. I like him a lot. Moog, this might be kind of controversial. I don't love Moog. I think that he is going to be high B tier. I am fine with his first phase. I think Nihil is annoying, even if you neutralize it by wasting one of your physic tier spots. But I think his phase 2 is bad. I think that he takes an already kind of, not that hard moveset. He takes like a decently hard moveset and then just drops fire everywhere in the arena. And I don't like when fights get limited like that. Like, I don't mind having to deal with terrain, but the amount of damage the fire trail does is too high, and it goes in too many places, and it stays for too long. So I actually don't love the fight. I always I bleed Moog, or I cheese Moog in some way. I don't love the fight, like if I want to get to the DLC. Okay, moving on to the Halig Tree. Loretta is basically a Tree Sentinel with some spell spamming, which I think makes her worse than Tree Sentinels. Weirdly, Draconic Tree Sentinel has spells too, but for some reason they're not as annoying. I guess because they're not just like hanging out glint blades that you don't know when they're going to fire, right? It's like the Draconic Tree Sentinel has the lightning that's really well telegraphed, or the fire breath that's super easy to dodge and really well telegraphed, whereas Loretta has just like kind of weird timing. So if she's going to be lower than them, I think she's going to be B. She's not as good as these guys. No, she's not B. Yeah, she's not as bad as Cleanrot. She's better than Cleanrot Duo. I think that is right for her, low B. Millennia is difficult because she is obviously such a big deal to the game and to the community. Like, she's probably the most recognized boss from the game. And she's obviously huge for like the DLC. She's kind of related to Radahn and Mikola, obviously. But I think that Waterfowl bumps her way down. I think if she didn't have Waterfowl, she would be S tier for me, because once you get used to her moves, it's really rewarding to kind of dance around with her. But Waterfowl is just unfair. I had to look up how to dodge Waterfowl because it just ended me. Like, you can't run away. You can't easily dodge through it. You have to confuse her AI. And I think that's silly. So she, for me, is going to be high B tier. I would rather fight... She's probably going to be like top of B tier because it's kind of just like a B tier in name. I do really like the fight. I just think she has that one move that drops her down. Like, it's like a penalty of 2 tiers. She would totally be S tier. She's so cool and a really good fight otherwise. Like, if I get a fight where she doesn't do Waterfowl, it's like, wow, that was a great fight. But that obviously is when I'm like doing way too much damage to her or something for some reason. It's not, she usually does Waterfowl, so gotta penalize her for that. Gideon is a crappy NPC. If you don't get him on the first try, he is so annoying. He's very difficult, for me at least, because he just like spams spells that do a ton of damage. So I pretty much always need to just like hyper buff and get him on the first try. Unfortunately, he is guarding probably my favorite boss in the game, Godfrey Horalu. I absolutely love phase 1. I absolutely love phase 2. I love who he is. There's all this build-up in the story to Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. He has 2 great cutscenes. Amazing fight, really fun moveset to learn. It like feels very aggressive, feels very scary. And then once you know it, you feel like you're a freaking golden god, ready to take on the Elden Beast. So I love that fight. I think it's probably going to be my top in the game. It's my top in the game for sure. And one of my top in the series, in like all the Souls games. I love Horalu so much. Radagon, Elden Beast. I never had as much of a problem with Elden Beast as everybody else did before we were able to use Torrent. Now that you can use Torrent, I think it's even better. But like I always liked Radagon Elden Beast. I think it's a cool fight. Yeah, I don't really have much more to say about that. Elden Beast isn't like the most fun, but it makes sense. Like, it's the final boss. I would rather have a challenging final boss than, like when we get to Bloodborne, like Moon Presence is an absolute joke. I much prefer Radagon Elden Beast to Garamond Moon Presence. And yeah, I think it's S tier. I look forward to it. I will start a run for for Radagon Elden Beast. I love it. Okay, so on to the DLC for Elden Ring. All of the Nameless Mausoleum NPC fights, I just don't like. I just don't like NPC fights. They're not the worst, but they're just not very fun for me. So they're all F tier for me. They're probably all D tier. I shouldn't be. They're going to be bottom of D tier for me. Because they're not like, Rakshasa's F tier. Because she has too much poise and can just combo you to death with her Ash of War and her katana, and you basically have to fight Rakshasa because her armor is amazing and her katana is amazing. So she's F tier, but the others are D. I think this is the NPC, the other NPC. So, okay, the Furnace Golems, I don't mind. I do think they have way too much health, but it's kind of fun to just like do your Pest Thread Spears or do your Shard Spiral or do your highest damaging thing and just kind of do like a DPS check. You can stun lock them if you have high enough DPS. So I enjoy them. And they also have a lot of really good items. They have the blood-sucking tier. They have the deflecting tier. So, I mean, those are really the only two that I need, but I think they're decent. Yeah, I like them more than Vike. There. Mid to low B tier. Regalia... Oh, no. Wait. Did I skip one? I thought I just saw the bear. There it is. Regalia the Great Bear. Yeah, I don't fight it very much. I don't like the bears. I probably will avoid it, but I like it more than a lot of these. They're pretty cool, and I think the DLC bears are cooler than the rune bears in the base game, which I didn't rate, it looks like, because there are so many of them. But yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Divine Beast, I like quite a bit. I think it is very hard, but I think it is very rewarding, and it has an amazing soundtrack. And I like that you're fighting like 4 different enemies because it phase changes to lightning and storm and ice, and I think that's really cool. I like it more than Placidusax and Elmer, but it is very hard. The lightning phase feels kind of cheap. There's a lot of running away, at least for me. So that is where it will stay, kind of mid-A tier. R'Lana. I wish I liked R'Lana more because she is so cool, but I just don't like her that much. And it's like full disclosure, it's because I have a hard time with her. I think she has a lot of poise, and I always run into stamina issues, and I can't deflect her very well. I just don't have a good take on R'Lana because I'm not very good at her. I probably could devote more time to her because she is so cool. And maybe one day I will, and this rating will change. But for me right now, I might fight her if I'm feeling really good about my build, but I might not. Similar to Millennia. By contrast, Gaius, I freaking love. I don't know why people have ever not liked Gaius. I really like Gaius. I look forward to him more than almost anything else in the DLC. I think it's fun fight. I think it's fair. I think the charge is a little bit tough, but it doesn't kill you, and you have time to heal up after. And all of his other attacks are pretty well telegraphed and pretty easy to dodge, so you can heal up after those. He's got a good amount of aggression. He's got a good moveset. He's got a really good reward with all of those Shadow Tree fragments behind him. And he's got a great remembrance. I almost always dupe it and want both of them. Great boss, great reason to fight him. Yeah, very few bad things to say, except the charge is a little bit tough. Yep. Golden Hippo, on the other hand, I hate. I think it is too fast and too big, and the arena doesn't make sense. I think it's really bad. I think it's as bad as as bad as the NPC fights. I will never take the front road to Shadowkeep. I always go the back way because the Golden Hippo sucks. Which is too bad because Mesmer is incredible, and the Golden Hippo is guarding him. Mesmer is one of the best fights in the game for sure. He is tough, but his attacks are super fair. Everything's pretty well telegraphed, and even if not, it's you learn it pretty quickly. I really like Mesmer. I think he's a great fight. I think he's on par with Morgott for me. The Scattertree Avatar I think is very fun. I think he's a little bit weak if you have access to a fire build. And that makes him a little bit easy, which is too bad because I think he's really cool. I think his moveset is fun to learn. He has a couple of AoEs that aren't too hard to dodge, and they're really well telegraphed. His regular attacks are not that hard to dodge, but makes you feel good and strong. He's a beast. I think he's a kind of beast boss, a big boss done right. It's intimidating, but not insane. He doesn't flail, like a lot of like the Bloodborne bosses. So yeah, mid A tier for sure. The Death Knights are pretty cool, and they have pretty good rewards. I just don't fight them a lot. I really like their armor, but you don't get the armor from them. You get it from a dead body in a catacomb somewhere. So I don't really need to fight them. Their weapons aren't that good, as interesting as they are. So I don't usually fight them, but they are cool, and they're unique, and they're interesting. So for that reason, they are high C. Next up is the Putrescent Knight. I, for almost no reason, love this fight. He has, a lot of the things that I said I didn't like about the Knight's Cavalry, where he just kind of runs away a lot, but for some reason, I like him. I think all his moves are easy to dodge, with the one exception being where the horse rears up and does a shout that will knock you back into a little bit of damage. That is I have attempted to no-hit him so many times, just kind of for fun, and that attack is 99% of the time the one hit I get, and then I have to start over. The rest of his attacks are pretty easy to dodge, and it's fun to kind of think of a fun way to maybe incorporate Holy, but mostly incorporate projectiles for when he runs away, and things to do to keep the damage up while he is doing his phase shift where he shoots the blue fire at you. I think he's a fun fight. It does have some issues. So he's only A. But I like him this much. I like him better than the Tree Sentinels. Jury F. F. One of the worst. He might actually be worse than Godskin Duo. He's one of the worst. He's a spell spammer. He's a summon spammer. You have almost no time to attack him. And he can also do melee attacks on you if you get too close. It's he's so annoying. I just backstab him or just use my most broken builds or whatever. He sucks. And similar to Golden Hippo and Mesmer, which is a shame that a boss who sucks is guarding a boss who rules, Jory is guarding Midra, who's one of the best bosses in the game, and love the way he flows. He's not that hard, and so he was actually the first boss I ever committed to trying to no-hit on my Dex build. He's really cool. You can bleed him, you can stance break him, so you have a lot of options. He has a ton of health, which I like. I like when it's a good fight. Fire Giant, I think, has too much health. But Midra is really fun. If he had less health, this would be a really lame fight, but he's a ton. So it goes on for a long time. He's a really cool, flowy moveset. His cutscene is sick, the coolest in the game, probably. And now Horlu's phase shift is probably the coolest in the game, but Midra's is really cool. God, I might like him more than... I like him more than Malk. I like him more than Mesmer. Who am I kidding? Me personally, I like him more than Mesmer. I love Midra. He's so much fun. Metter, I don't hate. I don't do no-hit runs, so I don't mind that a couple of her attacks seem impossible to avoid. I think she's pretty fun, actually, and the coolest lore probably of any boss in the game. What you learn about the two fingers is incredible. About after fighting Metter. So for that reason, I might fight her. She doesn't have very good rewards. So there's not. I like her low. She's lower than this. She's here. So there's not a great reason to fight her, other than just she's pretty fun. She's particularly fun if you have a stance break build. Yeah. Okay. Count Ymir, actually, on the spectrum of NPC fights, I don't hate him that much. So it's a two-phase fight. You fight first I don't remember her name, but the NPC in the really cool black armor first, and then you fight Ymir. And I think it's actually pretty fair. I don't hate this one for some reason. It works for reasons that I haven't really thought through. I think that's the right place for him. But yeah, it's you're not ganked by the two NPCs, but you have both the melee NPC and the caster NPC plus a finger, which isn't really that big of a deal. The fingers that he summons. That's weird. I should dislike this fight because it has all the qualities of fights that I don't like, but for some reason it just works. Maybe it's just better balanced than other gank fights. Romana, I don't like that much. She's required, but I don't look forward to her. Mostly because her hitboxes are strange. I feel like I'm getting hit by stuff that I shouldn't get hit by, and I'm avoiding stuff that I shouldn't avoid, and she drags me around a lot, and it doesn't seem right. Just seems like kind of a... I don't know. I don't know enough about the technical side of gaming to say it seems like a buggy fight, but it seems like a buggy fight to me. And the fact that it's required makes me judge it probably a little bit more harshly. And I don't like her. her attacks aren't that hard to dodge, except some of like the spinny attacks. Like I don't really understand the hitboxes on her scorpion legs. She does look really cool, and I like the pink. It's interesting to have like a pink boss. I think it's like the only pink boss, so I think that's pretty cool. And then moving on to like the journey to Bale and then the end game. Ancient Dragon Man, he's decent. He's kind of bad. I'm gonna put him with the ancient or the nameless mausoleum NPCs. He's not worse than them though. The Jagged Peak Drake is just not that interesting of a fight. And if this is all, if I'm also including in this ranking the one that's like the duo, it's not a duo, but the Jagged Peak Drake that's fighting another Drake, that just takes forever. So that's just like boring. If I feel like summoning Egon for Bale, I will wait and then beat the Drake. It's not that hard, it's not that interesting, and it's very boring. So it's a pretty low D. Cinesax, I hate the Ancient Dragons, and this is one of the worst. I think it's just too hard. I think it's overtuned or whatever. It does have good rewards though, but like I would cheese him or avoid him. Bale is amazing, very cool dragon. I actually weirdly prefer Midir. I might need to give Bale another shot because he's like obviously cooler. He's like more cinematics, but I just find Midir more fun. So I might give Bale like a top of A actually, even though that feels kind of sacrilegious because he is so cool. So much working into him and he is really cool. A little bit harder of a time with him. Some of his attacks are a little harder to read. He's very big and also like chunky, so you like can't see like what his limbs are doing all the time. Maybe that's what it is Midir is like easier to see because he's like a big skinny dragon. I don't know. That's the place for me right now. That might change. Letta, one of the worst gank fights in my opinion. I don't like her really that much, and I cheese her and Dane. And you know, the Horn Scent, if I haven't done his quest line, I cheese them as best I can, and I always summon obviously, and whatever. It's just not that. It's kind of just a gate to the final boss, which obviously is Promised Consort. I don't think it's that good of a fight, to be honest. Like I don't usually do it. It's kind of on par for me with Millennia and Rolana. I think he does so much damage. Yeah, I just don't enjoy doing it that much. It always takes me goddamn forever. I know all of his moves, but he's just so fast and so aggressive that I can't pull it off. And mind you, I beat him 5 times pre-nerf, and I still don't enjoy him that much post-nerf. I do think I don't like saying nerf, post-patch, because it wasn't a nerf, it was a fix. The patch, I think, made him better. I think pre-patch, he would have been C or D. I would be like, why is it there's no reason to do him? I just wanted to beat him on all of my characters, and I sprinted through the DLC on 5 of them before patch whatever came out, 1.14 or whatever patched him. And I did beat him, and I'm proud of it, but like every single time I beat him, actually in one of my videos, I put up a luck counter because it just always relied on luck. Like I'm as good as I could be at him, but I still, if I get bad moves from him, he will just combo lock me and destroy me. And you know, I have to get really lucky with the moves his AI chooses to do for me to be able to beat him. And for that reason, I don't seek him out. But I might, if I'm really feeling good about my build or it's been a while. Okay, so moving on to Dark Souls 3. I actually played Sekiro next, but I will do Sekiro last for reasons I'll explain when I get there. And I'll try to go a little bit faster because I have a lot of games left. But Dark Souls 3, I think, is plagued with a very bad early game and then a late game and DLC that is probably the best they've ever done. And that is, I'm saying that as an Elden Ring fanatic. But, okay, so in any case, Eodex Gundyr, the tutorial boss, I think he's pretty cool. I will look forward to that tutorial when I do it again. He's less iconic than the Tree Sentinels. I think he's pretty cool. I think he's not that hard. I think he taught me how to play DS3, which luckily for me was very similar to Elden Ring, so I first tried him, so I don't have a lot of experience with him. But I think he was fine. And his phase 2 was cool. It was weird and like scary and intimidating, but that's cool. Vort, I actually like quite a bit. I think he took me 2 tries, so I don't have a ton of experience with him, but he was fun. He was like he felt like a big guy done pretty right. His charge is very easy to avoid, and he gives you lots of space and Sure, it may be like easy that you can get under him and just whack away at him, but it still like feels cool when you do it, you know? Like I found that out immediately because I had played a lot of Elden Ring, so I knew that I could probably get under him and his hitboxes wouldn't get me, but I felt smart and good at these games for finding that out. And it feels cool to be under his attacks. Like that's fun. Even if it's easy, like it is fun. It's cool to be like, wow, I'm avoiding him and just whacking away at him, whacking him off. Okay, anyway, Jesus. All right, the Curse Rod of Greatwood is not very good. Is not bad. He's basically required because you need him to get the soul transposition thing. I don't think he's bad. He's just kind of a gimmick, and he just has some like annoying like spinning AoE attack. It's not AoE, but like he spins his arm dick, and it hits you. And so it's just kind of a drag, but I do it obviously because I want boss weapons. Crystal Sage I think is bad, and it's one of the worst early game bosses. It's not hard, so I'm not like pissed about it, but it's just not interesting. It's not as bad as these. Yeah, I think that's appropriate. It's a shame that it's like a required early game boss. Like I'm just gonna get through it. It also shows up later in the archives. So it is kind of like a boss that shows up as just a normal enemy again. But so for that reason too, it's not that interesting to me. Deacon sucks, dude. Why do they make bosses like this? It sucks. Like you're just mobbed by all these guys that aren't even attacking you, and you just have to kill time until the red dot goes into another deacon and you attack him. Like why? Who thinks that's a good idea? I hate these mob fights. So that's an F tier, dude. I never will look forward to it. I think. I don't know. I've only played it once. Abyss Watchers was sick. Abyss Watchers was really, really cool. It's almost like it might be S tier. Like I want to play again for Abyss Watchers. It was just kind of easy. It didn't have enough health to be S tier in my opinion. Like when I play Abyss Watchers, I will enjoy the fight a lot and look forward to it, but I'm not gonna like pick up Dark Souls 3 to be like, wow, I can't wait to get to Abyss Watchers because he just doesn't have enough health. But I really like the concept. I like how in phase 1 you think you're about to get ganked, but then you actually get help. It's kind of like because I don't play with summons because it's not an ego thing. I just like the way the boss AI works when they're only focused on you. It like gets confusing when it's attacking something else. Like I don't know where it is in the combo or whatever. I like to learn the boss moves. And so, but it was kind of interesting that like Abyss Watchers like kind of forces you to use a summon, and it was actually kind of fun. It helped, you know. So phase 1 is kind of a joke, and then phase 2 is really fun. Really cool moveset with the trailing fire, and fair and not that hard. In fact, kind of easy. Not like I'm great at this game. Like it probably took me like 5 or 6 tries, but like kind of easy. 5 or 6 is not hard. Like if we're talking like the late game bosses that I love, like these guys took me, not Morgott because he you know, but like Horlu Godfrey, Midra, Mesmer. The first time I fought them took a bunch of times, like double-digit times at least. So Abyss Watcher is just too easy to be S tier, but I like it. High Lord Wolnir is a gimmick fight. You just hit the rings on his arms, but I don't think that makes it a bad fight. I think it looks really cool. I will look forward to it, you know? I think it's a cool fight. Because it's not like a real fight, it's gonna be lower, but I think it belongs like there. I think he's cool. Like I don't have any problem with him being a gimmick fight. It's fine. And it looks really cool when you kill him and he slides down into the abyss. That's sick. The old Demon King I actually didn't find. I looked him up afterwards, so I can't rank him because I didn't fight him. Sullivan is tough. I think it was a tough fight. I really like the mechanic with I guess it's like the phase 2 where he I like him more than Yadex Gundyr. I like the phase 2 mechanic where he summons a second version and it actually kind of like telegraphs his attack. I actually thought that like made him a little bit easier. I thought his phase 1 was harder because the shadow like doesn't do a ton of damage and doesn't have a lot of health, but then just tells you what he's going to do. So if once you get the timing down, you can dodge his attacks and then have a free opening. So I like that. I like him more than Putrescent Knight. Who am I kidding? No, I don't. I know I don't. This is my subjective list. He is better than Putrescent Knight, but I like Putrescent Knight more for some reason. I can't explain it. It's weird how these things work. Aldrich, I think is just kind of like meh, just kind of boring. So I'm going to give him like mid B. He is a real fight, so he's higher than, like, I actually think of him as pretty similar to Metter. Like, it's kind of meh, but like not bad. His like melee attacks are really easy to dodge, and his spell spamming is a little bit annoying, but also pretty easy to dodge. The arrows can kill you really easily if you're not in a good positioning, and so that's a little bit annoying. You just have to either run away or get in the right positioning. So I don't think he's amazing, but I don't think he's bad. So he's B tier. Yorm, dude, I know Yorm is super easy, but that is not a penalty to me. Easy is not bad necessarily in a game like DS3 that has other great bosses. Like, I like the gimmick. I think it's pretty fun. I think it's a fun fight. I think it's low B. I obviously prefer like real fights more, but I think he's fine. I think he's cool. I like the Storm Ruler. I like the way that works. Obviously, Rykard is like kind of a one-to-one direct improvement. Which actually, where did I put Rykard? So he should not be above Rykard if he is. No, I did. He's below Rykard. So yeah, I think that's a decent place for him. Could be lower, but you know, I didn't mind that fight. Dancer was great. Dancer's not S tier for me. I really like Dancer. I don't love Dancer. I think that's appropriate. She had a cool moveset. I don't know anything about her lore whatsoever because I didn't do much lore diving on DS3. I was kind of just enjoying the boss fights, and she's fun. She's fast. Her moves are, you know, not super hard to avoid. She doesn't do a ton of damage, so I didn't struggle with her that much. But yeah, she's just like a solid boss, like a very solid boss. Like she's a solid, like, good boss. By contrast to a Cyros, who I think is just very meh to the point of being bad. Like, I'm not going to fight him unless I want to get extra souls or the Moonlight Greatsword. Or if I want to go to the Untended Graves. I guess I will probably fight him. So, but I will just like want to get the fight over with since he's basically required for that reason. Yeah, and once I played Bloodborne, it made a little bit more sense. He felt like a Bloodborne boss. Like, his limbs, you should be able to hit and stagger him, right? Like, his charge is a little frustrating. He wasn't that hard. I think I got a little bit lucky with him. He only took me like 1 or 2 tries, I think. And I think I got some help from the terrain. His attack, he like did a bunch of swipes in a row where he was missing me. I think it's because he was on a higher ground than I was. So that's kind of lucky. And I got in like a bunch of extra damage that way. So maybe I'll need to re-experience him, but I just wasn't that impressed with him. I didn't like his design. He looked like very smooth. Like, he looked like unrendered. Weird kind of look. Champion Gundyr, I looked him up afterwards because I thought he was one of the hardest fights in the game, and apparently he's super easy if you parry. I'm just really bad at parrying, so for that reason he's going to be lower than he probably deserves to be for me. But I really liked his like vibe. Like, I really liked that he was very aggressive, and just like his animations, he looks like he's just trying to kick your ass, and that's really cool. I had a really hard time with the fight, so I didn't enjoy it that much. He's probably A tier, like, by my own metric, because like I want to fight him again because I feel like I was missing something with his fight. So we'll see, but for now that's where he is for me. Lower than like a lot of my kind of penalized Elden Ring bosses. Wow, this is a really strong B tier with Elden Ring. Gosh, I'm kind of harsh. These are all decent. There you have it. Dragon Slayer armor is a really good fight. Just like it's very similar to Gundyr in that like it feels like he's trying to kick your ass, and for that reason I liked it a lot. It's like pretty similar to Elimer to me. It's like, who is this guy? I don't know, but it's like a fun, decently hard fight. He's harder than Elimer. I like his moveset. I like that when he phases, it looks like you stagger him and he has a gotcha, but that only gets you once, and then it turns out that it's a great opportunity to get some more hits in. So yeah, he feels very fair. His buddies hanging out on the side of the arena and shooting fireballs at you are not that cool, but it's not that hard to avoid either. And for me, it just wasn't really that big of a factor in the fight. So I don't really factor those guys in much, other than just it makes it a little bit more than just a regular old fight. You also see him again in the Ring City DLC, and he's alone that time. He doesn't have the pygmies or the dragons or whatever the hell they are shooting fireballs at you, and that was a really fun fight too, maybe even better. So maybe they make his fight a little bit worse, in fact. But yeah, for me, he's A tier. I enjoyed him a lot. And my gosh, now we're getting to the real meat of DS3. hell of a game. This end game is unbelievable. Like these are, with a couple like these are mostly S tier. Twin Princes is incredible. Like Twin Princes is such a good fight. To me, it's like the Morgott of Elden Ring. It's like, man, I want to commit time to this. I want to learn it. They're actually a lot easier than most of the Elden Ring bosses because like Lorien's attacks are really well telegraphed. Lothric's spell spam is not that like good. Like it's pretty easy to dodge, and I don't know. It's a great fight though. I just love the way it feels. The arena's cool. Their dialogue is so cool. Lothric says like the darkest, coolest things. I love it, man. Great fight. Really like that you can swing or roll behind Lorien and hit both Lothric and Lorien to kind of cut down on the phase 2 a little bit. Otherwise, it might have been a little bit bloated if you had to just like beat Lorien 3 times and then hit Lothric a couple times, between each. But that's not the case. I really like the way this works. It's a really good fight. It is like, it's kind of stunning that they made Promised Consort and Nicola the way they did after they had already done this fight. Because this fight, I think, is miles better just in terms of fairness and kind of fun. Like the difficulty to reward ratio is very well tuned on Lothric, on the Twin Princes. So the Ancient Wyvern is another gimmick fight. And I liked it, dude. I think it's not that hard to get up ahead of it. And then it's really cool to do the plunging attack. It looked awesome. And you're like riding and killing a dragon. For that reason, I am going to put it at the bottom of A tier because I know that it is not a good fight. And I did try to fight him normally a couple times until I was like, clearly something is wrong here. Just like hitting its legs. It's like, I'm going to need to hit him 1,000 times to kill him. That's clearly not what I'm supposed to do. So I started exploring and figured out the plunging thing. And it was cool. It's easy. Like, since it's not hard, I can't penalize it. It's easy and it's cool. It looks awesome. The animation is fun and you one-shot him. Like, what more do you want? It's a gimmick. Who cares? Nameless King is unbelievably cool. I love Nameless King. I think the first phase is sick. Oh gosh, how much do I like Nameless King? Nameless King is unbelievable. Nameless King is basically an Elden Ring boss. Like, I did not actually struggle with Nameless King that much. It took me like maybe 45 minutes because I was so good at the Elden Ring playstyle. Like, he is a proto Elden Ring boss. He has the delays, but he's so cool. His look is awesome. Basically, he has like Malekith's helmet with the Serpent Hunter, and really cool armor. The first phase is really fun, and I think it's fair. The second phase is really fun, and I think it's fair. I think it's a great boss. Gosh, do I like it more than Lothric? Yeah, I might. It's really fun. I'm looking more forward to fighting Nameless King again than I am Lothric. And he's better balanced than Morgott. I think Nameless King is that high for me. I really like the Nameless King. Because I am such an Elden Ring biased guy. Like, those boss fights are just what are in my brain, like, as the way to fight these Souls bosses, because I played Elden Ring first. So Nameless King just works for me so well on so many levels. Cinder was amazing too. Cinder was amazing. One of the best final boss fights. Best or second best. I mean, behind, him and Radagon are neck and neck. So I'm going to put him right with Radagon. Ooh, now I'm going to have to make the decision. I think Cinder's better. I think Cinder is a cooler concept for the last boss. It's like if it was just Radagon, which is the better part of that fight anyway. Yeah, I think that's the right spot. I think Cinder's better than Malekith, because Malekith has an HP issue like Morgott, where he just doesn't have enough. Yep, that's where it is for me. Okay, an exception to how good the final bosses are Champion Gravetender. Just not interesting. I don't like, it's basically a duo. It's kind of a DPS check. This is not good. Yeah, it's pretty low. I'd rather fight Gravetender than Tibia Mariner. Sister Freed, oh my god, she's so cool. 3 phases, so bombastic. The second phase is one of their best duo fights they've ever done. The first phase and the third phase are some of the best dual bosses they've ever done. Like Duel. She's incredible. I'm going to just spoil it right now. She is my favorite fight in all of Soulsborne. I think she's incredible. I can't wait to fight her again. I cannot say enough good words about her. She's so cool. Her moveset is so balanced and fair. The phase 2 is the way they ought to do duo fights, where one is kind of passive, shooting AoEs at you, and the other one is attacking you a little bit more aggressively. I think it is perfect. I think everything about this fight just scratches every itch that I have in Souls games, and I love it. And she looks so cool, and she's ferocious. Yeah, nothing else to say. Demon Prince is the best duo fight they've ever done, I think. I love Demon Prince. I'm going to rank Demon Prince super, super high because I esteem it, and I had so much fun with it. The first phase is the two demons, and it is much like phase 2 of Sister Frida, a perfect duo fight where one is kind of hanging back and shooting AoEs at you, just that you have to stay mindful of. Nothing too difficult. And the other one is being aggressive. And I love the moveset. And then in phase 2, once you've beaten both of them, it explodes into a Bale-like demon prince, and that's who kind of the real boss is. And the moveset is similar but expanded, and it changes based on which of the demons you killed first in the first phase. I think it's so incredible. I think it's one of the best fights they've ever made. I think it's here. I think it's like literally in my top 5. I love it. I guess it's not gonna be top 5 because there's still a couple left in DS3, but I love Demon Prince. I cannot say enough about it. All right, God, the DLCs of DS3 are just unbelievable with the exception of a couple, including Half-Light. This is so stupid. I don't like NPC fights. This is such a bad fight. I will just always get through it to get to the real reward, which is Gale, but also Midir. I like Midir the most of every dragon. It is my favorite dragon in Souls because at first you think there's absolutely no way. Actually, I like Midir more than Lothric. There's absolutely no way that I can do this. Like, he has such a big health pool, and he's just killing me so fast. I thought Midir was so hard. But the learning curve is quick. After, like, maybe an hour, I was getting very close to killing him. And then it was kind of a nice surprise that he ends up staggering, like, towards the end. You can do a riposte that kills him or gets very, very close. It was not, like, it's nice that it kind of gives you that break after this very endurance-heavy kind of fight. I think Midir's sick. I think it's my favorite dragon. I still think it's better than Bale, but I do need to give Bale another shot. Yep, that's right to me. And then Gale, you know, emotionally the fight is all the way there for me. Gosh, these are neck and neck. Gale, like there's just so much that goes into the Gale fight. The cinematic is really cool. He's been kind of woven into the story from the cathedral in the base game and Ashes of Ariandel. What he's seeking is so interesting. The arena for the fight is so interesting. The fight itself is really, really fun and cool and fair and difficult. It's like really close to a perfect fight. Gale and Sister Frida are for me neck and neck for my favorite. I just slightly prefer Sister Frida. The thing Gale does have going for him over Sister Frida is if you care about the lore at all, like the fight feels very emotional. I can't really explain it. It's like his moveset and just the way it feels. Maybe it's the score, the lightning, the ash. It's all the way there. That fight is great. And it's a duel. It's like my favorite way to fight enemies. It's cool. You know, there's not much more to say about Gale. He rules. He really, really rules. They really like nailed every aspect of him. The only reason Frida, I think, is higher for me is she feels more bombastic, which is kind of ridiculous to say after what I just said about Gale, but she feels more bombastic to me. With the 3 phases, the Black Flame Frida, I think, is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life after I beat phase 2 and thought I beat them. And then there is also the phase 2, which has the duo. So I think Sister Frida just has more to offer in like a single boss fight, and that's why it's my favorite. But like Gale is right there. Like nobody would be surprised if I switched them. I wouldn't be surprised if I switched them. Yep. So, okay. That's it with DS3. What I have left is DS1, Bloodborne, and Sekiro. And honestly, these are all going to be lower. Not Sekiro. I'll talk about Sekiro when I get there, but DS1 and Bloodborne are going to be lower. To me, Elden Ring and DS3 are at the peak of boss design. Like the DS3 endgame and DLCs are unbelievable. I think Elden Ring is good all the way through, but obviously you can see from the rankings like a little bit inconsistent. It has like just as much good as it has bad. But I think the good is so good that it, it's still my favorite game. I don't think DS1 and Bloodborne have good bosses. I think Bloodborne's DLC changed that a little bit, but I'll talk about that. So DS1, it's a good game. It's a great game. But I mostly like these games for the boss fights, and DS1 simply does not have particularly fun boss fight experiences. What is really good about it is the world design. It's great. Obviously, there are hundreds of hours of videos about how good the world design is in DS1, so I'm not going to even bother here. I'm sure when it came out, it was totally revolutionary. In my opinion, when I played it, at the end of 2024, it feels dated and not really worth obsessing over anymore, considering the other titles that are available, considering there's DS3 and there's Elden Ring in the genre. I didn't find the DLC, which is annoying, so I do have to come back to the game because I'm sure the DLC bosses in DS1 are probably the best. So I am going to play the game again, but I am not obsessed with it, and I think the bosses are bad. Frankly, I think it did take me a while to get used to the playstyle. It is obviously a lot slower than Elden Ring and DS3, but I think that's worse. I don't think it's more fun to have a slower playstyle. I think it is what it is, and I'll judge these as fairly as I can. But Elden Ring and DS3 do exist, and these bosses are just not on the same level. So just fair warning, I don't think there are going to be any S tiers and maybe 1 or 2 A tiers. And even then, the A tiers are mostly going to be for something else, like the lore, or for Gwyn, the music. Let's start at the end here. Gwyn is A tier. Gwyn is the best boss in the game, without a doubt. His moveset is more on par with the more modern games. Gwyn is cool. Gwyn is a good fight. Finally, it took me the entire game to find a good fight, but I enjoyed Gwyn. And I know that you can parry him. I saw this later. I'm not a parry guy, so I found the fight difficult. And I think fairly difficult, in a rewarding way. I enjoyed it. If you parry it, it looks like it's not as fun, so I'm probably not going to do that. But he's cool, his soundtrack is just iconic. I did know that when I played DS3, I knew that the Soul of Cinder soundtrack incorporated Gwyn's with the plinking piano. I do think Soul of Cinder's soundtrack is better, to be frank. I think it just improves on Gwyn's soundtrack. But Gwyn's is iconic. It's really cool. And it was a fun fight. But that's pretty much it for DS1. The rest of these are going to be all lower. Asylum Demon, good tutorial, not a great fight. It's just not that interesting. It's really easy. It's ironically, it's it's basically exactly like the Erdtree Avatar. I just think the Erdtree Avatar is a better fight. I think the mechanics are better. Asylum Demon, you just kind of run away and then hack away at it. It just feels weird. And also this boss is repeated 3 times in this game. It does do a really good job at the tutorial. It makes you run away when you just have the broken straight sword and you're doing 0 damage to it. And if it hits you, it takes away halfway your health. You're oh God, I actually have to run. I'm not good. And that was kind of a shock. I thought I might be decent at DS1, but DS1 I actually think I had the hardest time with of any of these games. Because it's just different. But the Asylum Demon, it teaches you the plunge, and then you have a better weapon, and it kind of, when you return to it, it's not as hard. So, yeah, I don't know, it's fine. Taurus Demon, I like as almost as well as I can for a DS1 boss. It's still going to be, pretty low. It's going to be B tier. I would put it here. I like the Taurus Demon. I thought it was a fun fight. You can do the plunge attack. You don't really need to. They teach you about the plunge attack in an interesting way. You go up to the archers that are shooting at you from the ladder when you first enter the arena. I think it's an interesting arena. I'll give it that. That is really cool. I wasn't expecting a boss fight when it came up. So yeah, I think it's one of the better bosses in the game. The Bell Gargoyles are, I don't think they're that good. I think that their tendency to have one of them shoot fire at you while the other one is swiping at you is very annoying and makes this fight last way longer than it should. I think they belong right here. They're a little bit more interesting than the Asylum Demon, but they are not that good of a fight unless you're way over leveled or have way too high of DPS for some reason, which to me is not fun. So yeah, man, I'm going to get crucified for everything I'm saying about DS1, but nobody's going to watch this anyway, so I'm fine. Moonlight Butterfly sucks, dude. I play a melee build in these games. I always basically do a strength build because I like the way that you experience the game in melee. It feels to me not cheap. Not I care about anybody who does faith or intelligence. I think those builds are very fun too, but for my first time, I want to experience the bosses up close and personal. And Moonlight Butterfly is so stupid in that way. They actually, this might be one of the worst bosses they've ever made. It's what is the point? it just shoots spells at you and then just rests its head for you to just whack at it. And I didn't like it. I didn't understand it. Capra Demon was bad, you know, like it's just bad. Like it's a gank fight. It takes you out in the first 10 seconds, and if you don't, then you just run up to the stair. Like, it's not interesting. Like, everybody knows the strategy. You just you survive the first 10 seconds, either with poise or with a spell or whatever, and then you just run up to the stairs and take out the dogs and then take out the demon, which isn't that interesting of a fight or that hard. It's like, it's such a weird mix. Like, at first the Capra Demon is insanely hard, and then it's insanely easy. So, how is that good? It's not, in my opinion. It's low. It's low for me. It's better than X-Likes. That's where it is for me. Low D tier. Well, mid. Okay. Gaping Dragon I actually kind of liked. Weirdly, I kind of liked this fight. I thought that it was fun, dodging its moves, because I think it actually worked with the pace of the game. I think it's one of the few bosses that actually worked with the pace of the game pretty well, because you didn't have to do fast rolls. You could commit to attacks without being afraid of another attack coming out in your very long recovery period. If you basically have to cut off its tail, or else you don't have much safety. But once you cut off the tail, I think it's a very fair fight, and I enjoyed it. I think it looks cool too. It looks kind of funny, but I think it looks cool. Very intimidating. I guess that's what it is. That this one gave me a real sense of accomplishment, because it's like, wow, this is a very intimidating fight. Like this big, toothy, chesty dragon that you then conquer. Yeah, I think it's cool. I like it. Quelaag, I don't like that much. I think that it takes kind of similar concepts as the Gaping Dragon and doesn't do them as well, because she's smaller. Her spider legs have these annoying AoEs that come up pretty quickly. So like if you're recovering from one of your very long attack animations, the AoE can get you before you can get out of the way of it. And I think that's annoying. Basically, the way you beat her is to bait out bad AI choices, like try to get the spider to shoot lava out of its mouth when you're not in the path of it. And that's stupid to me. And then you just whack it a couple times and do it again. I don't think it's a good fight. But it's not terrible. Like it's sort of more closer to the formula of boss fights I like. I just don't think it's pulled off very well. So for me, it is like bottom of C. It's like near bottom of C. Pinwheel. So Pinwheel is easy. Because it's easy, I don't really care. Like, yeah, it's a dumb fight. Like, there's no point to it. But since it's easy, it's like, all right, whatever. At least it doesn't have some mechanic that like insta kills you or something. That would make it bad. But since it's easy, it's just like there's kind of no point to it. So for me, it's gonna be C tier, like dead bottom of C tier. The Iron Golem I liked. This is what I like about big guys is I particularly like being able to strafe big guys. And just kind of get under their attacks. I really don't like when big guys have like AoE attacks so you can't be in close to them. I like being able to stay close to a big guy and just move out of the way, preferably like without locking on. And Iron Golem, I think, does that pretty much perfectly. And Taurus Demon is similar. Gaping Dragon is similar. Like that is, I think, what DS1 did well. Ornstein and Smo. Dude, I do not understand why people like this fight so much. I think it's fine. I think it's kind of stupid. Like, they both are running at you constantly. The best you can hope for is Ornstein gets stuck in a weird lunge animation and like gets stuck on a pillar or something, and then you can get an attack or two in. Snow is charging at you the entire time. You try to get him stuck on a pillar. Like that's similar to Quelaag. Like the way you beat them is hoping for like dumb AI decisions. That to me is not fun. I did not think Ornstein and Smo is a good boss. Like maybe I just don't get it. But like I said, I do a melee build. I'm gonna put them like bottom of B tier. Nah, they're not as bad as the Cleanrot Knight duo. Like they're better than that just because they're iconic. But like I don't want to be influenced by what the community thinks or how iconic a boss is. And so Ornstein and Smo is for me like pretty low. I like don't find it that fun. I find it kind of dumb actually. Like you're hoping the bosses do something dumb and that gives you time to attack. That's not fun for me. Once they're one-on-one, they're a little bit better, which is I think almost always true with the exception of like Freed Phase 2, Demon Princes, the only time duos have been pulled off well. I don't think Twin Princes is a duo technically, but yeah, otherwise duos are stupid. I think they're not as bad as Godskin Duo because they do at least make a little bit more sense. But like I said, it's not fun for me to have to rely on AI mistakes to be able to compete. And that, to me, is how I interpret the Ornstein and Smough fight. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe when I replay it, I'll get it. As everybody else seems to get it. I'm probably wrong here, but that's my opinion. All right. Stray Demon. This is just a repeat fight. I do, like I said, I like the fight decently, you know, like the Asylum Demon. So I'm just going to put it up there with it. I could be mad about it, like I am about Godfroy, but like Godfroy is like a story boss that's repeated. This one actually makes sense. I don't know. It's fine. Sif is one of my favorite fights, not even necessarily because of the fight. I think the fight is fine, but I just think that the lore is cool. It's so weird that I like Sif as much as I do and dislike Red Wolf of Radagon as much as I do, because they're pretty similar. But Sif is a lot slower. I think Sif, one of the things I like about her, probably her, is that they make sense for this game. Similar, I think, to like Iron Golem and Gaping Dragon. I think that Sif, you can kind of dodge under her legs and then take an attack or two at her legs, and then she jumps away. She just makes sense for this game. She fits the slower pace, unlike a lot of the bosses in the game. And she's a good doggo. So what do you want me to say? Four Kings, I also think is pretty good. I think it's one of the better fights in the game. I'm going to give it an A tier. I'm going to give it right next to Sif. Mostly because it's not even that good of a fight. I just think it's really cool. The concept of being kind of in the abyss was really awesome. I remember when I first was running up to it, I had no idea how big it was. So I was like swiping at it, not like I confused why I wasn't hitting it. And then I ran up to it and I was still like very far away from it. I thought that was kind of funny. They're not particularly hard. Their attacks are pretty easy to dodge. And I did not have the issue, like I was doing plenty of damage by the time I got to them, so I didn't have the issue of getting ganked up. So it was just kind of, I guess it was a little bit boring in that way, but I thought it was cool. I enjoyed it. I didn't have any problem with it, really, other than just it wasn't that fun. But it's an A tier. That's a good ranking. Who am I kidding? Ceaseless Discharge is kind of like Pinwheel, and it's not hard, so I'm like not mad about it, but it's like not that interesting either. So I'm gonna put it right by Pinwheel. I like kind of accidentally discovered the cheese thing where he jumps off the cliff. I was just running away from it because it just didn't seem like a real fight. I was confused about it as a boss. So I just ran away and he fell. So not that interesting. Demon Fire Sage. I think this is the third one of these, right? Yeah, I actually like this one the most of the three of these. I think having the fire, I don't know. I think it was slightly cooler than Asylum or Stray. So I'm going to give it the highest of the three, but they're all the same. Centipede Demon, I didn't mind. It was fine. I didn't think it was very good. I give it high D. I'm like not looking forward to doing it again when I play the game again, but it wasn't bad, in my opinion. I thought it was fine. It shoots an arm at you that you dodge, and then you cut its arm off, and then it's just kind of a normal demon fight. Yeah, nothing to say. Bed of Chaos sucked. It took me like 20 tries just to get like the jump right onto the tree branch. It was stupid. It was just stupid. That's all it is. It's just a stupid fight. Seath is not very fun. He just wags his tails around if you're behind him and does a ton of damage. And if you're in front of him, he sprays that AoE ice. I'm also pissed about the first encounter with Seath. I freaking went back to that boss room like 2 or 3 times because I did not understand that there was another place where you're supposed to fight him. Like, how is that supposed to be communicated to you? I just like scaled the Duke's Archives a couple times, died. It's like, what is going on? And then just did something else. Stupid. So stupid. Like, yeah. I don't want to like say too many bad things, but like it was not a good fight. But at least it's like a story boss, so I'm going to give it a little bit more credit. Seath is not better than Renala. I'm going to put Seath right here. Come on. And then Nito, I also hated. A mob boss. I think when a mob boss is done poorly, which is just when there's other enemies in the arena with them, I think that is my least favorite type. And Nito, I think, is the worst offender. I thoroughly disliked Nito. I ended up just like slashing at him and just relying on like RNG. So I don't know him. Like, I don't know his fight that well, and I didn't enjoy it. maybe I was missing something. I bet there was some mechanic I was missing. That's probably what it is. But like having skeletons and the big guys from the Tomb of the Giants in there with you, like what is the point? Let me just fight Nito. Give him more health and let me just fight him. Whatever. Okay. That was DS1. I was a little bit negative because I think the boss fights in that game are not the focus. I do think DS1 is a fun game. I am going to play it again. I just think the bosses are... I mean, they certainly were an afterthought. I just don't think they were that fun. And maybe I'm just not used to the playstyle yet because it was a lot slower, a lot higher commitment than DS3 or Elden Ring, where you can roll a lot faster, you can attack a lot faster, there's a lot faster animations. So DS1 just didn't click for me in terms of the boss fights. But there's still a couple A tiers, a couple B tiers. I think, it was decent. It was a good game. I mean, it was a really fun game. Like, it was really cool. Like, the world discovery is the most fun I've had doing exploration in any game, including Elden Ring. Like, the world was built, like, in a really genius way. Very, very fun. I don't think it's a bad game. I just don't think the bosses are that good. Bloodborne, again, great game. The bosses are just not that good. I think is not just there's just not a great challenge to reward ratio. The darker aesthetic of most of the bosses and most of the arenas is just not my jam. That's my bias. I prefer the more like dreamlike fantasy settings of Dark Souls and Elden Ring to the like dark London aesthetic of Bloodborne. I do think it got cooler. I liked towards the end game when there were like kind of the alien presences were more emphasized. I thought that was cooler looking. But unfortunately, the bosses didn't really improve. The DLC, I think bosses are more impressive, for sure. Though, it seemed to be the start of the trend at From Software making better bosses, because DS3 was the next game, which I think is probably the with the exception of the early game, the best run of bosses in the end game and DLC there. Also, a disclaimer, I did not do the Chalice dungeons, because I don't love dungeons in general, and they seemed like a distraction from the main game. Maybe they weren't. So maybe I should have done them, and maybe I will in the future. So I do wonder if the bosses in the Chalice dungeons were better, but on the whole, I was not that impressed with the Bloodborne bosses, as fun as that game was. Again, not to take away from it, DS1 had amazing world building, or, world design. Bloodborne, the combat is so fun, so I enjoyed it still. I just don't think the bosses were the highlight. Okay, so anyway, starting with Cleric Beast, basically the Beast tutorial boss. It was fine. If I don't have to I don't think I have to do it, so I'm probably not going to do it again. It was fine. It wasn't that fun. It kind of reminds me of the Dragon King, actually. Yeah. And then it comes back in the DLC as my least favorite boss in the entire game, so that, I think, tainted it a little bit. I didn't hate it while I was fighting it the first time, but now I hate it, kind of. So, Gascoigne is one of the better bosses in the game, for sure. He uses the Hunter Axe, which I also was using, so I did not find the fight that difficult because I was very familiar with his moveset, because it was the moveset that I also was using. But I will say his transformation, the first time I got him to phase 2, he transformed into a beast and mauled me to death, and I guffawed. I laughed out loud, and that was a really fun gaming experience. So for that reason, he will be pretty high. I think that is where Father Gascoigne belongs for me. Sort of mid A tier. The Bloodstarved Beast, I actually really liked. I thought this was probably, well, I mean, Ludwig exists, but I think the Bloodstarved Beast was my favorite beast boss in the game, actually. Yeah, I'm going to give it an A. For some reason, I really enjoyed the fight. And maybe it's because this is the first time that it's like the first place where the combat in Bloodborne really clicked with me, where I figured out the limb thing. Also, his attacks are pretty easy to avoid and pretty well telegraphed. Like, he sticks his right arm out a lot, and you can figure out what to do from that. So maybe I just like it because it's a little bit easy, but I liked it. It was fun. It's an A tier. I'm looking forward to fighting it again when I replay the game. Unlike the Witch of Himmek, one of the worst bosses. I guess it's sort of like a mob boss. It was easy, though, so I'm not as mad about it as, say, like Nito. So I'm just going to give it, bottom of D tier. Vicar Amelia was not that fun. I liked the Bloodstarved Beast more. She wasn't bad, though. Actually, she kind of reminds me of Red Wolf or Redagon, that she's very fast, but Bloodborne has the rally system, so I think it works a little bit better. So yeah, I'm going to give her mid-C tier. Dark Beast Parl, I feel kind of weird about because I fought him when I got abducted, and he was way too hard, so I left. Then I came back later, and he was way too easy, so I don't feel like I got a really balanced experience with Parl. So for that reason, he's low for me. I did like his kind of attacks. Like I liked his, it looked like he had like that blue lightning, I forget what it's called, bolt. He had bolt effect on, so that's pretty cool. But he just wasn't, I don't know, like I said, I had kind of a messed up experience with him, so I'm gonna put him at the top of D tier. The Shadows of Yharnam, I think, are a gank fight that works. I think it's better than Ornstein and Smo. I think it is not even close to as good as Demon Prince. I think it's fine. I am going to put it right above Ornstein and Smo. No, it's better than this. It's like, it's an okay fight. It felt pretty fair. They have different specialties, you know, so you don't have 3 guys running after you. You have 1 guy sitting back and casting spells, and then 2 different melee guys at different speeds. So I think it worked pretty well. Rom, arguably the worst mob boss. Not super hard, though. It just took forever because you have to like bait out the little spiders that it summons and then take a couple of swipes at him. It's not as bad as the NPC fights in the DLC. Not as bad as Golden Hippo. Not as bad as a lot of these, actually. I'm going to put it above, right above Capra Demon. I did not enjoy the fight. Very cool arena, though. Kind of the proto-Rolana Phase 2 arena. Renala, wait. Yeah, Renala. Which one is the caster? Looked cool, but kind of a bad fight. Took me like freaking... I think the fight took me like 8 minutes when I finally beat it, so... One Reborn, pretty bad. Low D. I'll put it right below Rom. Amygdala, also pretty bad. I don't really have much to say about them. They're just not very good fights. You can't really see what's going on. Martyr Ligarius is the type of fight that I really like, but I do think his phase 1 sucked. He was just like a spell spammer, so for that reason, even though he looks really cool, he's at the end of probably the coolest level in the game. He's gonna be like a low B for me. I'm gonna put him like above Niall. I'm going to put him above Aldrich. I liked him a little bit more than Aldrich, but I do think his phase 1 was a little bit BS. He just casted spells so fast. But then his phase 2 is not bad. You can parry him, so. Celestial Emissary, bad. Very dumb fight. I don't know, some random F tier. Ebrietis, also bad. I think that she does too much damage. I think that her safe spot, which is kind of in her butt, I think she does the 360 swipe to save herself too often. I'd rather fight the Jagged Peak Jake. I think she's right here. I did not enjoy the fight. Maybe I'm missing something. Nickolash, really bad. Random F tier. I don't know. Not the worst fight they've ever made, but just not fun. Murgo's Wetners, pretty good. I thought it was easy, though, so it's not going to be A tier, but I will look forward to fighting her again. I think that's where she belongs. Gehrman was cool, very cool kind of story point, obviously, because he's the last boss, and not hard enough, I think, to be like an S tier or even an A tier. I think he's like similar to like Rolana for me, of like, yeah, sure, I'll fight him. Although, actually, unlike Rolana, he's like not that hard, so I do think he's cool. I think he's a B tier. I don't think he's like the best final boss they've ever made. I think Moon Presence is straight up bad. Just because it's too easy. I'm going to put it at the top of D tier. It was like, I first tried it. I don't even know what I was supposed to do with Moon Presence. It was super easy. And I was not over-leveled. I was like level 80 when I beat the game. Okay, onto the Bloodborne DLC, which I think is, on the whole, much improved from the rest of the game. I think Ludwig is very cool. Mostly the coolness factor is putting it in the A tier. I don't think the fight is actually that good. I think it's interesting. I think it's cool that he has different fighting styles between phase 1 and phase 2, because he like changes his perception of himself too. So it's cool that he changes his fighting style. His sword is amazing. It's my favorite sword in the Soulsborne series. I love the Dark Moon Greatsword in Elden Ring and the Moonlight Greatsword, the whole, Ludwig's Holy Sword in this game. So I used it once I killed him. So for that, I have good feelings about him, and his soundtrack is incredible. So he's an A tier. He's cool. He's a good boss. One of the better in the series. Living Failures, like, dude, wow, like, what? Why do they have so many good bosses and so many bad bosses? It's such a weird, like, they have a good one, a bad one in Bloodborne. Lady Maria is sick. I think I got, unfortunately, a little lucky with her AI. I beat her on my second try, but I think she is amazing. I think she's very similar to Freed. I just like Freed better, so for that reason, she's not going to be like S tier, just because I think she's been improved upon. But yeah, she was probably the best fight in the DLC for me, other than Lawrence. Lawrence sucked. I didn't like. He's just a reskin of Cleric Beast plus fire plus the new phase where he trails lava is just dumb. It's just like awkward. Didn't like it. Other than Orphan of Kos, which I think is an S tier boss. Like the challenge to reward ratio on this one is so perfectly tuned. I really loved Orphan. Insanely hard, like not at all an easy boss. It took me forever, but like it scratched that itch that I love about FromSoft games, which is like it's really hard to figure out, but once you do, it's amazing, and you just chip away at his health, and it's super rewarding. I felt so good when I beat him. I like could barely sleep that night. I was so excited, and that to me is what this is all about. So I cannot put him lower than S tier. But I think a lot of his difficulty, yeah, he has a tough moveset, but you can get used to it. You get used to the moveset pretty quickly. The issue is he does so much damage, and I don't love that about him, because I like being able to like last in boss fights, and because that's how you learn him anyway. And maybe I was a little underleveled. I was like level 79 when I fought him or something. But I mean, what am I talking about? He's S tier. Like, he's a great boss, really rewarding. So okay, all that's left is Sekiro. I don't actually think these bosses should be included in this list. Sekiro is not, in my opinion, of the same genre. And my main argument in support of that is that playing Elden Ring, playing Dark Souls, playing Bloodborne, all made me better at each of those other games. That is not the case with Sekiro. I did not get any better at Elden Ring by playing Sekiro, and I was not any good at Sekiro because I played a bunch of Elden Ring. It's a different skill set, which is not a knock. I think it's a great game. It's just different. It's just a different game. I don't think these bosses are particularly comparable. So I will end this video here, but I'll make a video right now adding these bosses into this tier list, just sort of as an addendum, because I think they do belong, because they are great bosses, but they don't belong in that they are just a different playstyle than the other games. And more different than, say, like Bloodborne is from Souls. So, okay, I will do that now.